By the way, it's not that hard to be bigger than Exxon Mobil, and that is the subject of today's Faber Report.
You have a Faber Report on Exxon Mobil?
Yeah.
It was up $1. It was up $1.80 yesterday.
It was. It was up a lot. In fact,
Are you going to
take a look at the
kibosh it?
performance of, not necessarily. You look at the performance of the stock this week, Exxon Mobil, you'll see it's moved up sharply. That's just this week. And yesterday, as Jim points out, it was up over 4%. There's been a lot of chatter about activism in Exxon Mobil, Jim. And that's sort of what I want to talk about here. Whether or not we'll actually see an activist emerge there, I think remains unclear. I do know that, a number of people in that industry in terms of, well, both firms and then who you hire in terms of lawyers. When you take a look at things, you want to make sure you review all sorts of things in terms of the company's bylaws and things of that nature. Doesn't mean they're going to show up. Doesn't mean anybody will actually show up here. But there's been rumblings about it for quite some time now. And I do know at least a couple of firms that have been looking at it. But again, it doesn't mean they're going to make their move. Why? Well, any number of reasons why you wouldn't make the move. What would be the argument for doing it, Jim? You and I have been talking about it a bit lately. You got a dividend yield, of course, that's 10%. There's a question there as to whether or not you could do things that would improve free cash flow by cutting CapEx in some fashion, or at least cutting things from maintenance, paying down debt, and protecting the dividend. But really what it does come back to is the idea that it is underperformed, as you've said so many times. Right. Chevron, which is your favorite in the group, to the extent you have a favorite. I know you've said it's uninvestable. And you can take a look at Exxon Mobil versus Chevron over time, because, of course, Chevron has greatly outperformed, although both have underperformed the S&P over any given period of time. But there it is. Exxon Mobil down 45%, Chevron only down 10%. Again, that's over 10 years. Take a look at the performance versus the S&P, and you can understand why there might be some frustration. Now, a lot of this, of course, has to do with the movement in the underlying commodity, and that remains the key risk for any activists that would take a shot at this, not just the size, not just the tenacity of Exxon and its executives who have operated in some of the most dangerous parts of the world and probably aren't particularly afraid of any said activists, but also you can get it right on all the capital allocation fronts, so to speak, and still get it wrong on the commodity and end up a loser. So what would you actually do if you wanted to do this as an activist? You'd probably short Chevron and go long Exxon and just make the spread, because you would be arguing Exxon will then start to actually inflate up in terms of its PE multiple, because it will be rewarded by the market for doing more things properly on a capital allocation.
So you short the company with growth and vision and a great
But that's how you hedge yourself from the underlying commodity going down a lot and then just getting crushed.
Well, you cut back the Exxon exploration. Yeah. The whole problem is Exxon doesn't grow to begin with.
Right.
So why would you do it? That's a non-starter.
And, it may be that this ends up being a non-starter, but I will tell you, there's certainly been a lot of rumblings around it. We'll see if somebody actually emerges. That'd be a tough fight. Obviously, it's still a large market cap company, though nowhere near what it once was at, $145, $150 billion. You could actually take a fairly substantial stake, and you might have a lot of shareholders who sort of got on board with you. But I don't know, Jim, but I did want to mention it, particularly in light of what you saw yesterday, which was that big move up, which may have just been chatter. I'm not sure it was actual buying by some shareholder activist, but certainly the chatter has been in there.
Rex was a king.
Rex Tillerson, former Secretary of State.
Talk about not being afraid.
Yeah.
He was not that happy with President Trump.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.